JMM Jan-Moritz Merkel bringing this historic Sultai Ultimatum deck, and a bit more ramp, a few better targets to find for Emergent Ultimatum. This deck is pretty powerful at going over top of things, and you're really looking to go over top of the mid-range decks like the Junt Food decks. What you don't want to be seeing if you're on this Emergent Ultimatum deck is Azorius control. Counter spells are the bane of this deck's existence, and this is a counter spell deck all around. So as much as I want to be rooting for Jan Morris on the Sultai Ultimatum deck, this is going to be a tough matchup for him.
Well, as the fairy said, let's slow this down and see if Azorius Control can get a win here in a match that they seem to be favored to do so in, as we kick things off here with Hallowed Fountain from Ben Zahneissen.
A good start for JMM. Does have the Wolfwillow Haven on 2, so a bit of early ramp, though no real ramp follow-up. On the other side for Ben, only a Censor as a counterspell, no copies of Absorb currently in his hand, no copies of Saw It Coming, so certainly lacking in the counterspell department at the moment. The real question is whether the Sultai deck will find the window to take advantage of that before something like Teferi comes down or a counterspell is drawn.
Yeah, that's typically when the game swings drastically into the favor of the control player, is when good old Teferi lands on the battlefield, draws a card, and untaps 2 mana to protect himself or prevent a further spell from being resolved.
Yeah, for Jan does have that Vorinclex in hand, which
Mm-hmm.
can serve as an answer to Teferi. Ben has the Censor to protect it potentially if he wants to set up a line where he goes Teferi plus b- uh, untapped lands to attack this Vorinclex. But now with the Urian on the battlefield, first that's going to demand an answer from Ben.
A sad Sky Noodle as nothing gets bounced, but it is a threat on the board, and the key to beating control is to try and kill them before they can do anything against you. So, looks like we're going for that plan from Jan-Moritz Merkel as we behold the multiverse and take a look at the top of the library. Dream Trawler, a little too early, so that's going to get sent to the bottom, and another Behold the Multiverse is going to stay on top.
Yeah, Behold, not ideal here. Ben is really looking for some hard counters to feel in a safe position, but you can't really forego the draw spell because the best way of trying to find the counters isn't just to rely on the top of your deck. It's if you can't find them, try to at least use draw spells to give you a better shot in the future turns.
Doomscar Foretold, making it a 3 mana board wipe. So, Yorion gets to hang out for a second. And the turn will be passed back with the Censor still available to Ben. Jan-Moritz
That Pact
Merkel's
of
found
Negation.
Pact of Negation, though. You like
That's a
free
massive draw.
counterspells? Here's some free counterspells. Vorinclex on the stack. What do we see here from Ben? Not going to do anything. Will allow this to occur, and 10 points of damage coming through. Down to 10 he goes. And a cycle here of the Shark Typhoon.
Yeah, Ben's really looking for an untapped land. This allows him to go Field of Ruin, Doomscar, and leave up Censor. Jan Mars will go for the Emergent Ultimatum. Actually, he could just Pact of Negation this Doomscar here. And essentially, if Ben counters it, then that's fine. Jan untaps and goes Emergent Ultimatum. If Ben
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have the counter, Jan just has lethal on the battlefield. And now he doesn't have to worry about using this pact on the counterspell on the ultimatum, which means he doesn't have to pay 5 later.
That is super useful indeed. And we have 2 lands in hand here for Jan-Moritz Merkel and the Emergent Ultimatum. The control player is tapped out. Whatever you want to do, now is the opportunity to do it, Jan.
Yeah, it's go time. Vorinclex is gone, but this absolutely offers the opportunity for Jan to get something like Planewide Celebration, Liliana Dreadhorde General, and Alrund's Epiphany. Perhaps the triple package that he's looking for here, as if Ben doesn't give him the extra turn, he will be able to ultimate Liliana immediately and leave Ben with just essentially nothing. If he does give him that pack, if he does give the Time Walk, then one of those 2 cards will still be enough to do damage.
Excuse me, it's Time Squawk.
Time Squad. All right, fair enough.
It's always a feels bad giving the extra turn, but you know, in the back of your mind, you're like, okay, they may whiff, they may have nothing in hand, right? So this is
Oh,
fine.
this is There's just nothing doing here for
Ugh.
for Ben. As yeah, take your poison, but either way, things are just going to go from bad to worse here.
So Alrund's Epiphany and Tybalt, Cosmic Imposter, down on the battlefield. Gonna get to exiling, finds it's a fairy. Hey! Hey, Jan, would you like to play a Teferi? I bet you would.
I mean, it looks so good for Ben. Why would he not? Or at least it would if Ben was able to play one.
And Ben is having none of that. He's like, you don't take my Planeswalker. And just Planeswalked out of that match, out of that game, as we get into game number 2 here between these players. Plenty of change is going to happen.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity. The Azorius control deck will take out almost all of the removal, and it is time to just load up on the counter spells. It's time to make life harder for the Sultai Ultimatum deck that Jan-Moritz Merkel has brought to this tournament.
Bring in all the nopes, Ben. You know you want to.
On the other side for Jan, we do see a copy of Carnage Tyrant and a copy of Thought Distortion sitting in the sideboard. Both of them will be quite potent in this matchup. Turns out when your opponent's playing a pile of counterspells, the words can't be countered are pretty darn good. A few counterspells of his own as well to replace some of the more board wipe spells that Jan may be playing. Perhaps keeping in a few copies of Eliminate, considering whether he wants to be completely cold to tokens or not from Jan if he does want to keep one removal spell in maybe and just ramp, play big threats, continue asking the opponent questions is the game plan.
It still boggles my mind that an 80-card deck, like these Yorion piles we see, are so consistent for the most part. You know, sometimes they misbehave, but it always seems like when they need it, they have it.
Yeah, and it really just asks the question of nobody ever explored this design space because there's no incentive to, right? You can do so many consistent things in a 60 card deck, but as soon as someone offers you a free card, you're like, 20 cards? I can do that. I can play 20 more cards. Don't worry about it.
And
Barely
you
an
thought it was
inconvenience.
a restriction.
It's fine.
Yorion being one of the more powerful companions from Ikoria. Just cementing his position in Standard and Historic as we get underway here in game number 2 between Jan-Moritz Merkel and Ben Zahneissen. Turn 1 Thoughtseize, always a good thing to see.
Yeah,
We'll take
Ben
a look
took
at
a
this hand.
mulligan. Jan's hand looks incredible. Ben's hand looks okay. Certainly can cast his spells. I think for Jan, with a Carnage Tyrant in hand and plenty of ways to overload the resources from Ben, may consider taking this Narset here. The only real question is, does Jan have something like an Eliminate to answer the Narset rather than just leave it alive, in which case he could take the Sod coming.
So it gets rid of one of the counter spells, so that's one less thing to worry about. Excuse me, gets rid of the only counter spell. Narset is basically just a precursor to a counter spell in this kind of deck, isn't it?
Yeah, so Jan does actually have an answer to Narset and Binding the Old Gods, but the primary reason for taking the Sod coming in his position is he needs that Cultivate to resolve on turn 3. He only has the 3 lands in hand, and if he hits his land drops, cards like Carnage Tyrant should be able to do a great job in this game. The big problem is he can't do that if Ben is just leaving up saw it coming. So now he's essentially baiting Ben into a position where he casts Narset and then Jan would have free reign to resolve this Cultivate. We'll see if Ben is in the business of letting him have this or whether Dovin's veto will actually counter this as it should.
Dovin says, no thank you, no ramp for you, as we know how much this Sultai Ultimatum deck can just spiral out of control. Here comes Narset. Potter of Veils finds another Dovin's veto. Unfortunately, though, she doesn't keep what she finds much of a secret, so Jan's able to find it. No land. How important was that counter on Cultivate?
That counter was game-changing, as now with Narset in play, and,
oh no!
That counter was the entire game, Ailey. It wasn't even
so
game-changing.
gross.
It was just the game.
Here comes Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. He's this awesome planeswalker that untaps things and draws cards. Yes, we know what you do. You win games, okay? Cool, fine. Stop showing off.
Ailey, I can't even be mad. I'm an Azorius Control fanboy. I love Teferi. I can't say no, but
Oh,
unfortunately, Ben
gross.
can say no. He can
He
say
can
no
say no
over
four
and over
times.
and over again until Jan's spirit is broken and he nopes out of this game.
Jan, just go. Just leave while you can, man.
Fly, you fools.
Save yourself.
Mm.
Oh man, this is gross.
Uh,
Sensor being able to take care of these threats, Jan not finding his lands, being able to leave up the mana to pay for Sensor, and Ben is just finding everything now. Teferi's going to keep on digging. He's going to find all the cards he can. There's Castle Ardenville, one of the other ways that this game actually kills you, not by irritation, but by creature damage to face.
the rare hidden secondary win condition of
Yes.
blue-white control that doesn't
Yes.
involve the top right concede button.
All right, let's try it again. Maybe it'll resolve this time. Nope.
Getting force spiked multiple times in a row is somewhat
There
demoralizing,
you
and I
go.
think Jan
Good job.
agrees with that statement.
Yeah, let's get on out of there before things go from bad to worse. So, man, that counter on the Cultivate just so backbreaking.
Changed the
Jan.
entire game. It all came down to that one Dovin's veto draw on turn 3 for Ben, and that was all it took. Jan had a hand that otherwise would have flowed perfectly into a
Yeah.
potential Carnage Tyrant. Yes, Ben drew a Wrath of God at some point, but there wasn't a guarantee for that to happen. But just right on time, he draws that Dovin's veto, and that makes all the difference.
Well, if we're going with Gandalf memes, a wizard is never early and never late. He arrives exactly when he needs to. And
True.
Teferi also rocked up when he exactly needed to.
Ah, yes, the great wizard Teferi.
Yes.
This is going to be really rough for Jan. Yes, he does have the play in the third game here. He will potentially to maybe snowball and try to disrupt Ben more, but that game just went so awkwardly there.
Well, let's jump into game number 3 here and see how this goes. Can Jan-Moritz Merkel get back into this and find the ramp that he needs? 2 Wolfwillow Havens in the opening hand there. Take a look at Ben's side of things too. Yeah, this looks pretty good.
Yes, he can.
Oh yeah, this hand from Ben is a little bit of a yikes, and I think
this
we're gonna...
is a mulligan to me.
Yeah. I mean, you can believe in the heart of the cards as much... Oh, hello.
All right, spicy keep alert, spicy keep alert.
All right, everybody, hold on to your chairs. Thoughtseize.
Oh no, hello, no.
Hello. Hi.
Okay.
Don't judge me.
Jan has options here. The Censor has to look the most tempting. A, because it's the cheapest counter. B, because it's the only 1 mana cycle. So if Ben whiffs for a couple of turns, that Censor is what can try to dig him out of this. So you see Jan immediately looking at that Censor. The other option, perhaps the search for Iskanta, never didn't have it. Not going to be any surprise to Jan when that island is played on turn 2. So search was maybe a consideration, as it would have smoothed out multiple draw steps if Ben had actually hit the land, but I really like
come on.
I really like Jan taking the gamble in his position and saying that maybe you won't draw the land.
This is ridiculous. Is Seth Manfield secretly Ben's on Asen? This is the kind of thing you expect Seth to keep and just magically find every single land off the top of the library that you need. Oh. But on the other side of things, Jan-Moritz Merkel has now been able to cast Cultivate and will get to ramping and finding the answers that he needs, hopefully, as well for this matchup.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, didn't draw a land that turn to be able to go Wolfwillow Haven into the Cultivate, but as it stands, still not complaining about the amount of ramp that he's had, maybe complaining a little about the number of lands that Ben has drawn since that turn 1 Thoughtseize.
Things certainly looking good here for Jan-Moritz Merkel. Knows about the Absorb, and is just going to keep playing the threats out, you know, getting his ramp going, and eventually he'll get to the point where he dispatches a threat in the hopes that it will get countered to resolve something bigger later on the line.
Good threat to get countered, really asking the question, and Ben is in an awkward spot. He may choose to let it resolve and just go for a Shark Typhoon cycle here. I would have liked to maybe see Behold the Multiverse instead, but now that Pelucranos is on the battlefield, Ben, he needs an answer and he needs it fast. Pelucranos does not give you that much time to sit around and hope to find a way to deal with it.
Oh, no, no. Polokranos likes to punch things and hit face. And that is pretty much what Jan-Moritz Merkel's going to be relying on here. And the onus is now on Ben to find an answer for this big, scary Hydra. Doesn't have one at the moment.
He does not. Jan has the option of putting Yorion in hand and just using Pelucranos to punch things, as you said, in order to be able to hit face. I think for Jan, the priority here is not to play into this absorb that he knows is face up now. He's resolved the threat. He's got the hard part of the job done. So now he needs to start pushing damage with said threat.
And damage we shall push. Not going for the fight. We'll punch this poor little shark out the sky. Lose a counter. It's now 5-5, but still a respectable 5-5 indeed. As Yorion Sky Nomad is brought to hand from the companion zone.
A little bit of a conservative play from Jan, certainly not getting as aggressive as perhaps he could have afforded to do so. Just not getting the damage through, but leaving up mana to put some fear in Ben. Obviously, we see in Jan's hand the only piece of interaction is an eliminate, but what Ben sees is 3 unknown cards that could be counterspells, and that means if he wants to play something like a Teferi, he has to give pause and think about it for an extra step before doing so.
Yeah, now he's almost, I wouldn't say forced, but he's more likely to wait until he can cast a fairy with counterspell backup instead of casting Teferi on 5 and then relying on the untap to be able to protect him.
Yeah, we do see one of the downsides of playing Wolf Willowhaven in a format like Historic, where Field of Ruin is seeing play, is you have to be really careful about which lands you're putting Wolf Willowhaven on. Putting it on that pathway there, really great on turn 2, and you had to because it was your only option, but now it means that Ben can essentially get rid of one piece of mana by using this Field of Ruin, should he choose to do so.
Are we going to see the draw go here from Ben? Yep. Gonna pass the turn back. Liliana Dreadhorde General drawn off the top of the library. Oh, I would love to see that resolve. Why do counterspells have to exist?
I think Jan would also like to see Liliana resolve in his current position.
All right.
Ooh.
You know what? Let's just keep dumping things down and see if we get a bite here from Ben, is what
That's not the
Jan-Moritz
one I
Merkel
wanted
is
to dump.
thinking. Oh, Jan-Moritz
That's the
Merkel.
one that he gets censored. I did not
Yeah.
want to dump that one. You see Ben adjusting his tapping there. He's going for that Field of Ruin on the end step. Not doing it in response, obviously. Doesn't want to give Jan a piece of mana to pay for said censor. But now he gets the counter. He gets rid of the land. And yes, this Pelucranos is still a problem, but it's quickly going to be less of a problem if Ben can find literally anything to deal with it.
All right, let's see if we can find a Teferi at the top. That's another censor. They get worse as the game goes on, but luckily they can be cycled away to find a relevant threat. But we're going to deploy Search for Escanta here on Ben's main phase, and just pass the turn back to Jan-Moritz Merkel, who finds an Explorer off the top.
Yeah, another 5 damage coming through here. Ben down to 10, but Jan's follow-up, both of the 6 drops walked directly into another sensor, so now that he got censored last turn, perhaps going to stop and go for something like the Yorion instead, saying, okay, I don't want to walk into another sensor. I want to force you to use this absorb
Yeah.
as much as possible. Yes, the Liliana is tempting, but you know there's a
Don't do
counterspell
it.
there anyways.
Don't do it. No. Oh, it's so sad.
All right, for those keeping count at home, I believe this is the 4th spell of Jan's in the last 2 games to successfully get censored. So the toll this is taking is adding up.
Oh, no.
That's an answer.
Oh, hello, cost out. Oh, unfortunately.
All right, well, Ailey, this is the beginning of the turnaround here for Ben, as Pelucranos is gone, the clock is gone, 2 counterspells remaining. I feel like Jan is just going to walk into another sensor, potentially.
Oh, this is such a feels bad.
Binding is a good draw.
Yeah,
Binding,
binding's super good. This will almost certainly get absorbed, and that is the counterspell that Jan's been trying to get out of the hand for a couple turns now. So there goes the piece of removal. No Polychronos back for you, says Ben. And
Yeah,
to follow it up with an explore and find another Binding the Old Gods.
How
Okay.
many cards? 7 cards. He can keep this and still flip if he wanted. Bins it anyways, no longer needing the card advantage from his point of view, considering he now has the Scanta, the Sunken Ruin, available to him. So this is maybe... Oh,
Don't do it.
you don't have it. Oh god, this is gonna be heartbreaking, Ailey.
Oh no. I don't want to
Ailey,
watch.
I can't watch. Oh no.
I don't want to watch it.
Oh god. Oh my god. Lest we forget, Ben kept a 1-lander this game.
Then he just finds more. Oh, this deck is so silly.
And I think he's still going to use the sensor.
Yeah,
You
he's just
can't
like,
not.
oh hey, look what I've got. So you want to play something else? You can try. You're not gonna get any luck with it though.
I think Jan might call it.
Oh boy. All right, you just got to work through the counter spells, Monty. It's okay. He still has 4 cards in hand. Okay.
Ailey, that is so much easier said than done.
I am an eternal optimist against better judgment. I mean, there's Castle Vantress and a flipped search for Azcanta on the battlefield.
I have seen this song and dance before,
I
and
know.
it does not end well for Jan-Moritz Merkel.
It does not. But one can hope.
And he's aware of that Dovin's veto, and Azcanta is on the battlefield. It is flipped, so the train of counterspells will likely not stop, and if it stops, it will maybe be for Teferi.
So Dovin's veto, getting rid of that, binding the old gods. What can we follow up with, if anything here? Nothing. Why not Jan-Moritz Merkel? There's a hand of cards that are just gonna get countered. Ay.
Alright, well...
I mean, Azcanta can whiff, right? It's kind of written in the rules text somewhere. It has
I
the
don't think
potential
it's
to
allowed
whiff.
to. I've never seen it whiff. I don't know about you.
Alright. Alright, well, here comes Yorion.
That can resolve.
It's no biggie. I can just make a massive shark.
I believe that one is allowed to resolve.
Oh boy.
We'll likely see a Shark Typhoon for 5 on this end step from Ben. Okay with the Shark getting eliminated. That's potentially worth it. Still will be able to untap, go to Fairy, leave up Absorb, tuck the Yorion. Just so many options here.
Oh yeah. The world is his oyster now, as we'll see. A big old Shark Typhoon here. It will die. And that is a price I'm willing to pay.
Yeah, the life of that shark is a price that Ben is willing to pay here, indeed. And the Super Friends are really, really coming together here. Ben's Justice League, as it were, as he's about to tuck this Yorion and can even afford to play Narset while leaving up Absorb if he wants to do so. But
how did this happen, Monty? I mean, he kept a 1-lander.
I think Jan is asking himself that exact same question. Is my hand looked perfect? My opponent's hand looked not. How did we get here?
Oh, cool. Let's just get some more nopes. There's a Wrath of God.
We're looking for the oh no, don't Ben. Ben, your compatriots. No.
No,
Ben, no.
No, not that. Oh man, she always gets him, and that's going to lead to the scoop there from Jan-Moritz Merkel. Ben picking up the victory with those filthy control planeswalkers on the battlefield. Ugh. I know you like them, Monty, so you could talk about that matchup. I refuse.